Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, just wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostroski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
What is going on, everybody? It is Thursday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and that can mean only one thing, folks. It is time for the Big O Show as we're going to preview this week's game against the Indianapolis Colts. But as always, we appreciate your support. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Our numbers are climbing, and that's because of you, the listener, the viewer, the fan, and we greatly appreciate all that you bring to the table for the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, as we are powered by Believe. And as you know, this Sunday, 1 p.m., the Buffalo Bills head to Indianapolis. And by the way, little tidbit, the last Buffalo Bills quarterback to win in Indianapolis would be none other than Douglas Flutie, the man that wore number 7. So we tried to change that this weekend in Lucas Oil Stadium. Buffalo Bills come in a 4-point favorite. The over-under is 48. And the Indianapolis Colts are 4-5. But like the Tennessee Titans, this is a good football team, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll get into that in the breakdown. We'll get into that with our keys to the game. But this is a good football team. They run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, Father Time is the quarterback now as Joe Flacco has taken over. But they've got talent on this team. Defensively, they got some talent. We'll talk about that as well. But once again, this Indianapolis Colts team, 4-5, give them Josh Allen, give them a good quarterback, a solid quarterback. This is a pretty decent team. So this is not a game that we need to sleep on. But we got a lot going on. We'll talk about some matchups. We'll talk about rankings within the NFL, as we always do. Last time these two teams met was in 2021. Indianapolis won 41-15 in Buffalo. I believe that was the game that Jonathan Taylor ran wild. Hence, my friend Joe always makes the boards before the show. His board says, "Can we stop Jonathan Taylor?" And that will be one of the keys of the game that we will talk about as we move forward in the show. But right now, let me bring on my good friend, my homeboy, my ace, Dr. Brad Bowen from Driven Physical Therapy and Performance. Dr. Bowen could not be on last week because of me. I messed up the schedule. And it's Halloween, man. You can't come between the kids and their candy. And we always have kind of some traditions, some family stuff that we do. But we got Dr. Bowen on this week. Brad, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Jerry. Back again. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Let's dive right into the Keon Coleman situation. And obviously, Keon Coleman dealing with the wrist, maybe some things that you might have seen, maybe some things that you want to talk about with this injury, because he did not participate on Wednesday's practice, did not participate today as well.
Yeah, so I think he got injured on that hit from Jordan Poyer, I think is what we were assuming after that game, got knocked out. And he was seen in practice today walking around. There was some video showing some pretty noticeable swelling on the back of his hand. Now, it really hasn't come out exactly what's happened yet, but I think you and I both believe that we're not expecting to see Coleman in this week, but hopefully soon we start to get an answer as far as the injury that he's dealing with, and we can start moving ahead towards getting him back on the field. But as of right now, there hasn't been a lot of information, and I don't know what you've heard, but not much on Twitter there either.
We had Mookie Hawkins on with us on the Beat Show on Tuesday night. Mookie saw him at an event, tried to get some out of Mookie. Mookie asked him flat out, how you going to be? And he's just like, hey, I'll be fine. I'll be back. We're working through it. Everything's good. The typical pro football athlete answer that you would get. So obviously it's a little bit more involved. Do you want to speculate on what this could be?
I hate speculating too much. With the amount of swelling that was seen on video, I'm hoping for just a simple contusion. Maybe he's having trouble gripping a football right now, having a hard time closing the hand, and they're just holding him out of practice for the time being. Fingers crossed, that's best case scenario. Get the swelling down, and next week he starts practicing and playing again. But as of right now, we don't really know too much, and obviously Mookie didn't find out too much either.
Amari Cooper, another wide receiver that we rely on, and all of a sudden that receiver room after we bring Cooper in is having issues with some injuries. Cooper, limited in practice the last couple of days, is wearing kind of a little mini cast. It was kind of speculated that he hurt that injury trying to block in the running game. Maybe just a sprain. Obviously, he missed last week, trying to come back this week. I guess it's not quite as involved. I mean, you can speculate however you want.
Yeah, if he's wearing a little cast, obviously something's being immobilized there, and they're trying to keep him as comfortable as possible. Catching a football's got to be a little tough with that thing on. But as far as trying to think about what injuries could happen there, you've got a little cartilage on the outside of your wrist that can get irritated. It's called the TFCC, and you've also got a couple of small bones in the wrist area that, when blocking, could get crunched together. So either a capitate or a lunate injury wouldn't surprise me, even if he had a little bit of a subluxation. They're trying to keep it calm with that cast for now. Fingers crossed he can catch a ball okay in practice and can show up again on Sunday this week. That'd be great to have him.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I think, with injuries nowadays and the way that they don't, I mean, hockey's even worse, right? You don't get upper body injury, lower body injury. You don't get anything else. At least they give you a body region or area. And then with all the different views and film angles that we get during the week, we can kind of maybe speculate and see those plays where the player was injured, look at the modality or, the body position and things. But real quick, let our listeners know, I mean, these wrists are just so complex. It's really hard to kind of, foresee or make a speculation just because there's so much going on in there.
You've got a ton of little bones in the hands, lots of little ligaments, and you're asking a joint that needs a lot of mobility, but also a lot of stability to do a lot of things. And as an offensive lineman, we were always taping our wrists, trying to give as much stability in that area as possible. But some of these other position groups don't do that. They need mobility. They need to be able to reach out and grab that ball and pick it out of the air. So inherently, they don't want to tape their wrists all the time, but that's where you start to get blocking injuries like this out of wide receivers or, skill position groups, and it becomes a problem here and there.
I know they used to make them for us. Now my son wears them every week. DJO makes them. They're actually kind of wrist inhibitors where it only lets the wrist go back so far, and there's kind of a fin or a pad in the back of the hand area. It's a wrist brace plus that kind of restriction that kind of maybe keeps it get into some bad spots. But moving over to the defense, something to talk about. Kaiir Elam last week says that, hey, his shoulder went out, popped it back in. He went out and played. Probably something chronic that he's dealt with for some time. Maybe some things they can do with first of all, why would the shoulder dislocate, and what are some of the things they can do to help him get through games?
Yeah, if he had a full dislocation, he's got some instability in that area, because to pop a shoulder out and put it back in like that wouldn't be his first rodeo with that one. Usually the first one would keep you out of a game, and the fact that he went back in with a brace means he's probably done it a few times. Inherent instability like that, and again, another joint that has a lot of mobility and needs stability at the same time. So he probably affected the labrum somewhat, or already has a pre-existing labrum injury. He could be dealing with that throughout the rest of the season. So you might see him on the list for the rest of the season. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And if he ends up having some sort of a stabilization injury or labrum injury at the end of the season, I would kind of go ahead and expect that too. But if they can keep it from being a recurrent thing throughout the season, and he stays healthy and has full mobility and strength, he's going to keep playing.
With the jerseys and the way the sleeves are nowadays and the minimalistic style of uniforms, kind of, a lot of people see these guys that are playing, especially big linemen, and they've got these kind of black straps around their bicep and their tricep area. Kind of let the listeners in on what that is, and it kind of relates to what Kaiir Elam is going through and how that helps a player get through games and get through a season.
Yes, they have different braces and tools that will help to kind of keep the shoulder in a certain position. So in the case of like a Curtis Samuel or Bernard with the pec, it'll keep that arm from getting extended back behind them. In the case for Kyler Elam or an offensive lineman, they may want to help to provide some stability for that shoulder, kind of sucking that humeral head back into the joint. The shoulder's always talked about like a golf ball on a tee. So the more compression you can keep into the shoulder joint, the more inherent stability that joint has. And a lot of those braces are meant to do that, where it may restrict movement a little bit, but for the most part, it's compressing the shoulder into the joint.
Outstanding. And obviously they added Casey Toohill to the list today. He was full, and we were kind of talking off the air a little bit. If you really get down to this Bills injury report, you've got Amari Cooper, Kaiir Elam, Reggie Gilliam with the hip. And that's another area that you can talk about. And am I also correct in the fact that when you look at a hip joint, it's very similar to the shoulder, and a lot of the same issues you can have with the shoulder, you can have in the hip?
You can, and if that hip moves in one direction or the other, it's got a labrum, so that cartilaginous ring that kind of keeps suction in that joint. If that hip moves too far in one direction or the other, you can pinch, tear that labrum, and get a lot of discomfort, especially with running. Most of the time, hip extension, so leg back behind your hip abduction, which in a player like Casey Toohill, you're going to need a lot of that. You're driving off the ball, running into big offensive tackles. So I'm guessing he's probably dealing with a little bit of a labral or groin issue there, having trouble extending off of it. And with some mobilization and stability exercises, you can get through that. But again, it could end up as a surgery at the end of the season. Wouldn't surprise me that happened either.
But looking at this injury report, before I let you get out of here, he's Dr. Brad Bowen. Before I let him go, I'll let him hit you with his digits, his information. So if you have some things you're dealing with injury-wise, you're trying to rehab a surgery, if you're a weekend warrior like myself and you're into golf or softball or whatever it may be, and you just want to get better at your sport, you can go see Dr. Brad Bowen. He'll give you that information in a minute. But I look at this injury report. You've got Amari Cooper, you've got Elam, you've got Gilliam, you got Mac Hollins, and you've got Curtis Samuel. Those are your limiteds. And you got one do not participate, which you can't call them. And then you got 1 million people that are full Wednesday, full today. I'm starting to think that the NFL has told teams that they've got to be hypersensitive about reporting injuries because of the gambling aspect. Because I don't remember an injury report like this back in the day when we played. So many people on here is full. I mean, hell, Josh Allen's still on here. It just seems a little ridiculous to me. I almost kind of think it has to do with Vegas, with a little sports gambling.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think you're just exactly right. I think 5 years ago, seeing full participants meant that they weren't on the list. They were
right.
Back to full go. They didn't have an issue, and everything was either limited or did not participate. I think we're going to see the list get longer as the season goes on because, as you know, it's a grind, and we've already got a laundry list as it goes. I've never seen so many wrists and toes in my life on a list. Hopefully it starts to shorten, but I don't expect that to totally happen.
It's classic. I'll tell you, back in the day, if you had a heartbeat, if your lungs worked and you could breathe and you had relatively good cognitive ability, you weren't on the injury list, man. You're pretty good to go. But
full participant.
Hey,
yep.
Hey, real quick, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you and get some top-notch physical therapy or for performance training from yourself.
You can find me at drivenptperformance.com or give me a call at 716-341-9694 and we'll get you fixed up.
He's Dr. Brad Bowen. He's on every Thursday on the Big O Show, and we appreciate you, man. Have a good evening, good rest of the week, and let's hope the good guys win this week.
Go Bills, Jerry. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Brad Bowen from Driven Physical Therapy and Performance. We love having him on the show. We're going to get into a little bit of particulars like I always do during the week. I just want to give you a quick kind of a glance of where these two teams are kind of sit amongst their peers, amongst the 32 teams in the league. And then we'll get into my keys of the game, my 5 keys of this game. Because like I said before we got going, when you look at this Indianapolis team, yes, they are 4-5. This is a good football team. Again, another team that's having some issues with a quarterback. Joe Flacco won Super Bowls. I get it. Joe Flacco is now like 68 years old. He's a little bit up there. And obviously the Anthony Richardson situation and what the lesson they're trying to teach him as well. So we will get into that in a bit. But you look at these two teams, Buffalo 4-0 at home, 3-2 on the road. Indianapolis is 3-1 at home. They're 1-4 on the road. If you look at points scored per game, the Buffalo Bills, they are ranked 4th in the league, 28.9 points per game. The Colts come in 22nd at 20.9 points per game. Points allowed, Bills 8th, 19.2, and the Colts come in 12th at 21.4. Decent defense out of the Colts. If you look at turnover differential, again, Bills doing a phenomenal job, plus 11, third in the league. Indianapolis comes in at plus 2, 14th in the league. Passing yards per game, Bills 16th, 216. Indianapolis all the way down at 22nd with 193 yards. Rushing yards, Bills 17th at 119. Colts come in at 16th. This is one area that they're a little bit better than the Bills. They come in with 121 rushing yards per game. Defensive passing yards allowed, Bills 16th at 209. Colts not very good, 26th in the league, 233 yards a game. And then you look at rushing yards allowed, Bills are 15th at 123. Honestly, I don't know how they're 15th. I thought they'd be much lower after last week's game and some of the stuff that happened earlier in the year with the Ravens and the likes. But they are 15th still. And the Colts come in 31st, giving up 149 yards rushing a game, which we'll get into in a little bit. Remember that number. That's something we'll talk about right off the bat. If you look at the Colts leaders through 2024 offensively, Joe Flacco, 87 for 135, 895 yards and 7 touchdowns. I believe he has 2 interceptions. That's in, obviously not a full-time starter, but now he is the full-time starter. Alec Pierce, their leading receiver, 19 receptions, 435 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then the great Jonathan Taylor at running back, 105 rushes, 502 yards, 5 touchdowns. So really, really good stuff out of the Colts. But you look at this team offensively, Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver, dynamic playmaker. He is questionable. He may not play. They run 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. They do run the ball. They run the ball with a lot of zone blocking type schemes, looking at them on the all-22. They get after it. Their left side of the line is really, really good. We'll talk about that group in the keys in a minute. But you look at this group, you got Jonathan Taylor, you want to feed him the ball. They're nasty on the left side. They will get after you. But they will throw the ball as they can. Flacco, limited arm strength at the age he is, but he still understands the offense well. He understands anticipation. Think Peyton Manning post-neck surgery. Is Joe Flacco going to win a Super Bowl? I'm not saying that, but that's how he is. When you take these quarterbacks that have been great in the past and they lose something, they enhance another area of their game. And when you look at Flacco, his anticipation, his knowledge, his understanding of where the ball needs to go is still really, really good. Sometimes the body does not allow him to do it, though. But he is an effective quarterback and not somebody to be slept upon. Defense, they'll run a 4-3, but they also will hop into a nickel. They play a lot of nickel against Minnesota in the all-22. Very similar to kind of what we like to play. We don't hop in the nickel. We stay in nickel, so to speak. So this is a team that will do some different things defensively. They blitz a little bit, not too much. They do have some cats up front. We'll talk about them and the keys of the game here in a moment. But this Colts team has some talent. Place kicker Matt Gay, very, very effective place kicker, and special teams wise. So just a little quick glimpse of what they have going on as far as players, and we'll get a little bit more in depth with them in a moment. But one stat that I did see today, and before we get into the keys of the game, and if anybody's into analytics, advanced analytics, I've been drug into advanced analytics. Why? Because they do tell somewhat of a story. Okay, they do tell somewhat of a story. And do I think they tell the whole story? No, I don't. You still have to have a gut feeling about something, i.e. Sean McDermott running out Bass to kick that 61-yard field goal. You got to have faith in your players. You got to have faith in your decision-making. But sometimes you can fall back on analytics to help you through things and look at some stuff. But if you look at the Bills right now, okay, the Bills are the one team in the league that's in the top 10 in EPA offensively and defensively in the NFL. What is EPA? Expected points added. So basically each play, it's how each play affects the offensive chance of scoring. So if you're on offense, it's how does your play, pre-snap, post-snap, whatever, how does that affect that offense's ability to score? And on defense, what have you done? What has your play done to not allow the offense to score. So that's what EPA is. That's a big-time stat. And I saw that was pretty interesting. But Bills are top 10 in EPA offensively and defensively. Think about that, considering the offense in the controlled passing game and what they've been doing with the running game and stuff is not that explosive, crazy circus play type offense that we've had in the past where we've had crazy numbers. And then defensively, where quite frankly, we got gashed by Miami this past week. We got gashed by the Ravens, and a defensive style that allows the offense to have chunk runs and things like that. We're still in the top 10 in EPA. So that is a determining factor with this Buffalo Bills team, and the fact that, we're sitting there at 7-2 as we try to go to 8-2 when we travel to Indianapolis. And by the way, if anybody out there, Mafia, is going to Indianapolis, call now. You probably should have called 2 weeks ago. Hey, I'm that dude. If you got a chance to go to St. Elmo's, please do it. Get the shrimp cocktail, get a steak. It's wonderful food. When we played them every year, it was awesome to be able to go there. John and I, Glenn Parker, and some others always found our way to St. Elmo's. But let's get into my keys of the game. And again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're climbing. Our numbers are going up, and that's because of you guys. We appreciate you as always. And then also, don't forget, we do have overreactionbuffalo.com. You can go to overreactionbuffalo.com, get all the latest news right on the front page, as well as links to our shows and things like that. And then don't forget our podcast as well, amongst all major podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon. Our podcasts are out there. If you don't get a chance to catch the shows live on YouTube, go ahead and listen to our podcast form. We'd love you to do that. So my first key to this game on Sunday, 1:00, Indianapolis, Buffalo's middle three offensive linemen versus the Colts defensive tackles. Okay, the Colts got two cats inside at defensive tackle. They got Grover Stewart, who's the 10th ranked defensive lineman in the NFL by PFF, and they also have DeForest Buckner, who's 17th ranked in PFF as well. Buckner's a guy who's long, has a ton of experience, has been in a couple places, San Francisco and whatnot, understands championship football, very, very good football player. Grover Stewart is a run stuffer extraordinaire, not the greatest of pass rushers inside, twitchy dudes. That's not his job. He is a run stuffer. Those two dudes will pose problems with our two guards and our center. And if you look at our guards and center, right now McGovern is playing really, really well. 7th ranked in the league by PFF. Edwards is 38th rated guard out of 77 guards. And Torrance, who is struggling. Torrance is having some tough times. He does some things really, really well, and he does struggle this, sophomore slump, call it what you want. As people get your tendencies and scouting reports, it's harder as a young player. You've got to fight through that before you learn to change things up and do some different things. But Torrance is 64th out of 77 guards as far as his ranking by PFF. And do I think PFF is the be-all, end-all? No, I don't. PFF relies a lot on that EPA and some other things. But it is a kind of a sign or a thing you can look at, or just another tool that you can use to kind of see how things are. So even though the Bills are running a dynamic short passing game, they're running with all the different runs and the tackle pools and the zones and the zone variations and the cutbacks and stuff that John talks about on Tuesday night on Off Tackle. Those middle three are going to have a game, because those two guys, when you look at their defense, they're two of the highest rated dudes on that defense, if not the highest rated guys on that defense. It's going to be an all-day deal for those three dudes in the middle. So we've got to control their defensive tackle. So my first key, Buffalo's guards, there are three inside guys on the offensive line taking on those Colts defensive tackles. Second key to the game. This has been talked about a little bit. It's now starting to get a little bit of national attention. I heard Orlovsky talk about it the other day. But Taron Johnson is going to need to have a game. And Taron Johnson, like we said, is one of the premier nickel corners in the league. But he did have a big injury. He did miss some time. He is coming back from it. We don't know if he's 100%. We don't know if it's still bothering him. Okay? But he needs to be strong in the running game, because teams are running the ball at him. Right now, he's 53rd rated nickel or in the NFL by PFF, or should I say safety by PFF. They kind of think they put nickels in the safety category. Okay, it's not quite the Johnson-like year. Now he still makes plays. He's still a heads up. That ball he knocked out on the sideline that we didn't get was a huge play. But teams are picking on him in the running game. They're trying to isolate him because we know the way the Bills play defense with a 4-2-5, we don't play a true third linebacker. It's not like we bring Spector in and we don't have Williams, Bernard, and Spector, or Williams, Bernard, and somebody else, Andreessen or whoever. That third guy is Johnson. And it's physics, folks. It's basic physics is what we're talking about. I don't necessarily know if it's his ability. It's not his ability. It's the fact that sometimes you got a 330-pound guy blocking a DB in the box. It's hard to play that. And what he does is extremely hard. That's why when you find one, you cherish him, you keep him, you pay him, you make sure he's happy. But he's going to have a game because they're going to go at him with Jonathan Taylor. With Flacco playing quarterback and the fact you just can't go four wides and just bomb it down the field all the time, the Colts are going to try to run inside zone. They're going to try to run some counter, some power, some different things. Nothing too complex, but they are going to try to get guys climbed up on him. He's going to have a game. So that's my second key to the game. Taron Johnson playing in the running game, playing downhill, having that type of Taron Johnson game that we all know and love out of him. My third key to the game is our defensive line this week needs to step up. And it's not just in the running game, okay? They need to pressure Joe Flacco. Now, last week, in a game where Ed Oliver was not necessarily great in the run game, if anything, he was kind of invisible in the run game. He did pressure Tua, one of his highest pressure-rated games of the season, and was graded very highly in that pass rush area. Now, Tua gets the ball out quickly. We know that. We've talked ad nauseum about that. But, we need to get this group going. Find a way to not give up so many chunk plays. We got to get stronger up the middle. We just can't let linemen climb up on our linebackers, climb up on Taron Johnson. And that's kind of where the Taron Johnson thing and this thing kind of mesh. If your linemen aren't doing their job, guys are getting free runs at the second level, and it's really, really hard to play. I talked about it earlier. We were talking about the lineups a little bit. This Colts team's got a nasty left side of their offensive line. So you got a tackle in Greg Rousseau, I believe. Not Greg Rousseau, that's our guy. Bernard Ryman is the left tackle. Bernhard Ryman is the left tackle. Then the left guard is the comparable perennial All-Pro Quinton Nelson from Notre Dame. Those two guys are premier dudes in the league. Probably the highest graded guys on their offense, maybe the highest rated guys on their team. Okay, and they're going to test this Bills. They're going to test this Bills D-line. If you watch where the runs go, they like to run over their left side. So the Bills are going to have to get after it, and they're going to have to be prepared to stop this running game with Jonathan Taylor. So that is my third key, is how does our defensive line match up? Now, obviously, we got some people that have come in this week. Okay, we got Jordan Phillips that we've brought in. We got Quinton Jefferson that we brought in. They're depth pieces. I'm pretty excited. If we can get Jordan Phillips to just flash anywhere near what he has in some of the games that we've seen him in Orchard Park, that'll help us. But I'm not sure how much those two guys will play this week, if at all. Maybe Phillips will. Don't know about Jefferson, but we did add some depth there. And by the way, I can say Greg Rousseau now. Greg Rousseau's having a hell of a year. He's the highest rated player on the Bills team, PFF-wise. Just having a heck of a year. He only had one pressure, though, this past week against Miami, and it so happened to be that inside move early in the game where he got the sack on Tua. That was his only pressure. So anyway, this group up front's got to get after a slow, old quarterback in Joe Flacco and find a way to stop the run. So my fourth key to the game is this. Buffalo's offense and defense has to find a way to be more consistent on third down and get better on third down. Buffalo offensively is 17th in the league, 38.2% third down conversion rate. The defense getting off the field is ranked 21st in the league. They get off the field at a 40.4 percentage rate. This Bills team's got to get a way to get better at third down. These Bills teams in the past, especially offensively, folks, we know they were leaders in the league, first, second, third in the league. Okay? It's hard sometimes for the defense with the style that they play. I almost thought maybe this third down percentage would be higher because we do give up so many chunk plays as far as running plays. We never really get the opponent behind the change on first down. We never get the opponent very many times third and long. It's usually 6 or less. I was surprised this wasn't higher. But again, Bills need to figure out a way to get better on third down, and this is a game you want to do that with because you got a chance to take an opponent that you are better than and I don't want to say demoralize them, but definitely get momentum. And this is my last key to the game. And I think everybody would have this viewpoint. So if you're watching out there, if you're listening, not today, if you're listening tomorrow on the podcast form, don't look ahead. Put the blinders on. Okay, it's human nature. We play Kansas City at home next week, but you got to take care of business this week because we're 7-2. If we don't take care of business, we're 7-3, and then we got the best team or one of the best teams in football coming in, and all of a sudden 2-game swings. It's like when you make a bogey and your buddy makes a birdie, 2-stroke swing, right? We don't need that. Don't look ahead. Bills need to take this game on and this game on only. We'll worry about Kansas City next week because that'll be a whole nother test in itself. So those are my keys to the game as we head to Lucas Oil Stadium Sunday afternoon at 1:00. I hope that gave you a little bit of a background, a little bit of information and idea on what the Bills will have to look at as they go to Indiana to play the Colts. Again, folks, this has been the Big O Show here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. We are powered by Believe. And again, hit the like, subscribe buttons, all that. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We love your support. We love you guys. Remember, tomorrow, if these walls could talk, we'll have the Overreaction postgame show. I believe it'll be 8:00 Eastern on Sunday. And then we come back on Monday with the aftermath in the morning where Joe gets to be Joe and kind of look at it as a fan view. Aftermath to me is a really cool show. I think that's something I watch it every week. I enjoy it. Then we got the off tackle show that night. We've got the On the Beach show Tuesday. Then Wednesday, it's hump day with him and Spence, Joe and Spence, and then back to me on Thursday. So once again, folks, we appreciate you. Let's hope our Bills play well in Indiana and beat the Colts. And we're having a good time on the postgame show on Sunday night. But as always, thanks again and much love. Go Bills.
I'm still the same.